Hey everybody, welcome to the Algorand Community Call. This one is for the month of April. If you're not familiar, my name is Joseph. I'm the head of product marketing at the Algorand Foundation. I also help with product marketing over at Per Wallet. And if you're from the community, you probably know me as Loaf Pickle. So very happy to take you through this call. We have a cool month this month. A lot happened in the last few weeks around Algorand, very exciting news. So happy to take you all through it. So for this call, we have an agenda, we have news, and then we're going to have Anil from AlgoBharat come and join us and talk about what's happening over there. Then we'll have a short update around the ecosystem. And then we're very excited to have our special guest, TxnLab. If you're familiar with the Algorand ecosystem, you know how much they've built and how many products they have. So it'd be nice to do a nice deep dive into them. And then after that, we have questions. So along all of our social media, please feel free to start asking questions. We'll queue them up. And then at the end of this segment, we'll answer them to our best of our abilities. Cool. So Algorand in the news. So if this is your first call, this Google announcement is probably why you are listening to this right now. So a few weeks ago, Google posted a paper on post-quantum, and Algorand had a major boost from the references in the post-quantum paper. So if you're unfamiliar with the chain, we have been working for post-quantum for about 2-3 years now. Our first implementation was this thing called state proofs, which essentially have a Falcon signature. This is a lattice-based signature that's used for quantum computing, and it's resistant to it. So essentially, our chain history, every 200 or so blocks, state-proof transactions made. So everything from that point backwards is, protecting against quantum. We also have recently introduced post-quantum accounts, and that's working through, and also we're working on post-quantum signatures. So it was really nice to see Google come in. Recognize all the work that we've done, and Algorand was referenced 32 times in the paper. It was only short of Bitcoin and Ethereum in terms of L1 blockchains that had smart contract capabilities that were mentioned. And in addition to that, the announcements for Algorand's share of voice reached new heights, increasing 6,000%. And the announcement was worth over $300 million in trading volume. So, just post-quantum in general has been a major talking point lately. And this timeline from Google only accelerated. And it's nice to see that all the effort that we've been putting to protect this chain against the post-quantum threat is being recognized. In addition to that, we had a partnership update with Revolut. So we've had, in the past, we worked a lot with Revolut. For example, if you have Revolut, you can use them in the on-ramp services for Para. But now Algorand is one of the few chains that was added to Revolut staking programs. So it's one of the largest neobanks in the world with over 70 million customers. If you're from Europe, you probably use them. In addition to that, so for this, users can stake their algo directly in Revolut, and it just kind of shows how we have such a good partnership with Revolut. And we were one of the few blockchains that were included in their staking program for the launch. So that was some very exciting news on our end. And in addition to that, Algorand is now available in the Swiss bank Postfinance. So Postfinance is the first systematically imported Swiss bank to offer direct crypto trading. So it's really great that we're one of the blockchains integrated there. And in addition to that, 2.5 million customers can now purchase algo directly into their bank accounts. So this goes along with the Revolut partnership, but we're doing as much as we can to increase the accessibility of Algorand in general. So that way, more people can discover it, more people can start using it and understanding how this blockchain is different than other blockchains. In addition to that, we have Algorand in the media. So Stacy, our CEO, was on Bloomberg, and she was also in the Wolf of All Streets interview. Following the Google announcement, 3 of our core engineers sat down with an interview with Genfinity to discuss how Algorand is post-quantum in more detail. So if you're into post-quantum stuff, it's a really nice interview to listen to. And in addition to that, you can see all the SEO improvements that came with the quantum paper, and now how Algorand is one of the top chains mentioned when people are searching for blockchains that are post-quantum. Cool. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Anil to start talking about AlgoBharat. Welcome.
Thanks, Joseph. Great to be here, and great to have this opportunity to talk about what's happening in India. AlgoBharat, we've been at it for a couple years now, and we've had a long-term approach into our efforts in India, and it's been great. We kind of operate in a little bit of a bubble where we're we're just kind of pining away doing our work. And it's great to step back a little bit, and Joseph, to share this with the community of what's happening with our developer community, and how we're, what we've done and where we're headed. And the reason, let me just also say that, Algorand has invested heavily just in terms of, focus and strategic interest in India, not just for the Indian market, but to develop a template that could be hopefully leveraged in other critical markets for the protocol. So let me jump in, Joseph, if you want to take me to the next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about our builder funnel, and about enterprise adoption. And when we talk about builder funnel, it's really, our approach has been, let's build a really broad developer base in India, people that are familiar with Algorand, understand, that we're trying to solve real world problems. Why blockchain? Why Algorand? And that kind of journey takes you to, from developer to builder to maybe in some cases startup founder. Not everyone goes that full journey, but we're going to talk a little bit about what, where we've been and where we're headed this year with our developer and builder base in India, and then a little bit about enterprise adoption. India is one of the few markets where we're really focused on enterprises adopting, Algorand. And when we talk about enterprises, what's unique and different about an enterprise, obviously from a startup, is these are enterprises that already have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of customers or users. So you're taking a population that's not kind of crypto native and integrating a blockchain component to the experience that they have. In most cases, they don't know it. But that's where we'll see lots of wallet openings, lots of transactions over time. And I'm going to share with you a couple of the projects that are, kind of the building blocks for what we have coming forward. So Joseph, next slide, thanks. So real quick, our work in India began, in 24 and 2025. We were focused on universities that have strong, kind of populations of computer science students, engineering students, introducing them to blockchain and Algorand. In the early days, we were actually going to universities and doing workshops and trainings. Over time, it really became, organic, where, colleges were coming to us to start their own blockchain clubs. You can see on the map here, we've got a huge number, over 100 Algorand blockchain clubs all over the country. So these are students, these are developers, these are professors that are, getting into our ecosystem, learning, about blockchain and why Algorand. And we've, tried over the last couple of years to, as people become more familiar, a little more sophisticated developers, how do we, channel their efforts into something that continues their journey? In 2024, we had a developer challenge that culminated at our 2024 India Summit, and those were, we had certain tracks that identified, wallet integrations, different things that we asked our developers to solve for, and it was really more to test their skills, not to kind of drive them to build a real business solution. Last year and we saw hundreds of developers that mostly came from our Algorand blockchain clubs, and we, the best projects they pitched on stage, they won prizes. In 2025, last year, we did our first 2 hack series, and these were, several month-long initiatives where we, offered workshops and trainings, but people were given a few tracks to build solutions, but also a lot of what we call build your own project or bring your own project. And so we had projects that were all over the place. And, one of the things that we learned in that process is people, had some great ideas and we saw them grow, but we weren't necessarily able to sustain them, to keep them with us, or eventually what we wanted to do was, take some of the best projects to mainnet. And so that's where we pivoted our focus a little bit in 2026. We'll go to the next slide. And focused on how do we build, and graduate from our developers to builders. So there's a few pretty exciting initiatives that we began this year, and we're seeing some great results from them. First is, we still have amazing Algorand blockchain club leads at all these universities, but we picked and kind of onboarded a handful. I think it was 6 student ambassadors, and these are some of the most amazing, passionate, and impressive developers in our ecosystem who, they're in key cities. They can go out and do workshops and really engage developers that aren't just from their a single university, but from an entire community. And so we onboarded 6 of them in the cities that are reflected on the right, in Kolkata, Pune, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and then the Nagpur, Mumbai, the state of Maharashtra. And we put them in areas that we have seen a lot of interest in, in kind of having Algorand come in and host hackathons, which we've shied away from traditionally. But this year we went ahead and decided that we were going to sponsor, blockchain Web3 tracks in hackathons that were being hosted by, whether they be university campuses or other local, Web3 communities. It's been an amazing experience. You already saw on the previous slide that there are 107 of these Algorand blockchain clubs. Through these local hackathons, where we sponsor, at a pretty modest cost, anywhere from $250 to $1,000 for, prize money at a single hack, we've had 6,000 new developers come into our ecosystem. We've sponsored, again, just a track in about 19 or 20 different hackathons. And again, in our ecosystem, 6,000 new developers. All the winning projects are up in our Dora Hacks gallery. And many of them are then being invited into our hack series. Obviously, there's a lot of developers there that are new to the ecosystem, right? They're not all this might be their first hack. And so we've also launched our Algorand blockchain developer training course this year. Really cool. We're the only layer 1 protocol to have dedicated training for blockchain developers on the NASCOM Future Skills Prime platform. It is probably the most recognized training platform for kind of IT tech service industry in India. So this training course takes you all the way, from the basics of blockchain to writing your first smart contract and building your first app. We've had, we launched the training program late last year. We have a little over 4,600 enrollees in the course, and there's 7 modules, lots of detail, lots of content, and there's about 300 that have completed all the assessments across the 7 modules, and then there's a certification, so you become an Algorand blockchain, a certified blockchain developer at the end of it. So really cool, great numbers, and again, much more along the lines of we want to train and develop developers, help them graduate from developers to builders, and continue their journey. Stick with us, help them get to mainnet and beyond, and that's really what we're focused on now. If we look at 2026. The focus of actually getting our developers to focus on areas that are priorities for us as a foundation. And we launched our first hack series of this year, Hack Series 3.0, in March, 2 months ago. It's, again, a 4-month-long journey with lots of support. We had over 400 teams that entered from across the country, in addition to the winners of the regional hackathons that I just mentioned, which were also invited to participate. From those 405 teams, we just had the second round of submissions. That's on the right-hand column, about 170. And these aren't just ideas. This submission, you've got to complete, submit a full stack implementation, the user flow with an actual integration with Algorand, and we're not looking for prototypes, but working products. The next stage will be a full MVP with transaction or simulated transaction or real testnet transactions will have to be part of your submission for the May submission. Eventually, in June, we're going to host our first India developer retreat. From that initial 400 plus teams, we're going to pick the top 30. Let me also just mention, from the current round of submissions, there's about 75 that are moving forward. And if you look at, what are they building in? Future of finance, we're seeing great DeFi projects, other innovative finance and payments solutions being built. X402, which of course is a huge priority and focus area for us. So about half of the projects that are coming into the next round are going to be in the Agentic Commerce X402 space. And then RegTech. RegTech is a big space in India because there are, privacy laws, data protection laws that are coming down the pike, and blockchain offers some really innovative components to solutions that can help companies solve or comply with those requirements. So that's the makeup of the projects that are moving forward. Of those 76, 30 will finally make it to the India Dev Retreat where they're going to come pitch. And then, unlike in the past, our focus here is how do we now accelerate? We think our developers, our builders are mature. They're coming forth with real business ideas, business solutions, and so how do we accelerate that journey to mainnet? So, one piece that we've struggled with it a bit in the past is integrating what's happening in India with the rest of the work of the foundation. And so now, these more advanced projects, the ones that are building and solving solutions that we think are important for us as a protocol, ones that are seeing transactions, X402 transactions, like we're going to get more kind of support and integration with the marketing and the new product integration teams to help these projects move from testnet to mainnet, and then not just get to mainnet, but actually succeed and scale once they're on mainnet. So you can see the projects that are making it to the next round at that link that's down at the bottom. If you're interested, some great projects and just great developers coming out of India. Very excited to see what's happening there. Next slide. So let me talk quickly about our enterprise adoption. So, we in India, it's a unique problem that we're seeing as an attractive use of blockchain for enterprises. It's around, it's really solving the last mile problem. It's a huge customer base, over 500 million people, for whom identity, and access to finance remain big challenges. And traditional, financial service companies have a hard time servicing them because there's a huge cost of acquisition. There's other barriers that they face, and oftentimes the transaction cost is higher than the unit level economics just don't work. And we're seeing blockchain really help solve that problem. So we've had 2 products that I'll talk about in a minute. But what we're focusing on for our work now is how do we leverage the stack that we've worked with some of the initial partners to build, and that's really the stack that's there on the right. There's the identity and wallet infra, so your self-sovereign identity connected to in this case, because we're talking about enterprises that don't have high familiarity with blockchain and Web3. So these are generally non-custodial wallets that are the starting point. Lots of use of Intermezzo right now in India. It's really great to see that adoption going up. So the first part of that stack is the identity and wallet infra. Tokenization, which is really the semantics. It's like what is the information that we're going to capture, that's going to determine your eligibility, whether it be for a loan, for insurance, for a government benefit. The programmable logic, right? That's critical. That's the syntax, the smart contracts, replacing discretion, automatic payment schedules, clawback features, default escalation. That's all built into the solution. And finally, the financial access point. That's what's going to come next. Right now, there's regulatory challenges and kind of a bit of a learning curve before you integrate that finance piece. So why is it attractive to enterprises in India? And I think what we're going to see is these aren't just relevant for India, but they're relevant for the global market. One is lowering the cost of customer acquisition. That's a big deal. How do I get those customers, and how do I remove the intermediaries that drive up the cost of that acquisition? 2 is improve risk pricing, because especially for banks and lenders, they're constantly looking for risk mitigation. So if I can use a blockchain solution that builds transparency and also gives me confidence about what I can expect from that customer, it helps me generate a higher premium off that customer. 3rd is scalable credit markets. You're building trust, and once I can offer them one solution, we see in places like India. So I go in with maybe a car loan. Eventually, I'm going to give a home loan, and then maybe an insurance product. With the new data privacy laws in India, I can't hold on to that individual's information. So how do I comply with data privacy laws and still build that scalable credit market? So let me talk, Joseph, about a couple examples real quick. I know I've gone a little long here, but I'll try to wrap up on these last 2 slides. The first one is on Mandeshi, I think, which is a cooperative bank. Can we go to the next slide, Joseph? There you go. Cool. So this is a project that launched a little over a year ago. It's Mandeshi is one of India's largest and oldest cooperative banks. Does the first savings product for hundreds of thousands of rural working women, and the focus was how do we go beyond. I mean, they're the first savings product, pension product, and then moving to lending for micro entrepreneurs. The challenge that they faced is, they can lend up to a certain point, and they have their own balance sheet limitations, and they direct, their intent is to help these women then go borrow from more traditional lenders. The hurdle they face is, they don't have a formal credit score. Uh, so what Mandeshi is helping these women do using a blockchain-based solution is, establish and verify that financial experience and gather their documents in a place that's digitally stored, a token reflecting those documents in their wallets, and publishing a credit score to their wallet that they can then take to a traditional lender. There's different models that work here. You can either go, and engage without Mandeshi, the bank, having to accompany them with the paper files. Moreover, you can the Mandeshi can make credit scores available of individuals that then can pre-qualify for a loan without sharing any of their personal private information. Those women then can then choose using a consent manager, kind of solution built in their attached to their wallet on who and what they share their information with, right? Their sovereign identity, their credit score, their documents behind that credit score. It's all available. It's all linked to their wallet, and they can decide who they share it with. They have seen, since the launch of this project, over the loan application process literally being reduced from a 4 to 6 month period to under 2 weeks. That's pretty phenomenal, as you can imagine, especially for the borrower. And from a business kind of perspective, if someone's actually trying to service that population, that's actually, they're pretty good borrowers. They pay back, but again, when there's no credit history, there's an element of risk that the lender has to mitigate for. So we are now scaling. They're still kind of an expanded wallet mode. They've got 1,000. They're on mainnet, 1,000 wallets open, 25,000 on-chain transactions. Still kind of inching forward, and the focus now is scaling from pilot to integration with other lenders and actually, lending platforms for people to come and apply for loans, but now they can do it much more seamlessly with like a digital handshake between their Mandeshi, digital wallet and the lending platform. So really excited to see that scale. It was a beautiful video that our marketing team put out. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out on our social media handles of the foundation. One more project I'll just talk about real quickly. That is the next one, the Self-Employed Women's Association. That's another large organization, 3.5 million, women. These are informal economy laborers, for whom the government provides all sorts of, health and other safety net products. The problem is, you have to qualify for those, and these women often lack the documentation in one place to determine eligibility and to enroll in these programs. So SEVA, the Self-Employed Women's Association, they've developed this health passport solution, and it's tokenizing these documents that need to be used, and we're also now not only enabling these women to store their documents, and for SEVA, the organization, to help manage the process, but we're also engaging with the state government, where there can be a digital handshake between the wallet and the enrollment process for the program. That's a big deal. That enables women to stay employed in whatever job they have, because they know they've got childcare. They know they have health insurance. So when it's 140 degrees outside and you fall sick, you don't have to leave the job. You actually can get access to healthcare and keep working. That project has already onboarded about 9,000. It's inching closer to 10,000 wallets that have already been opened, 150,000 on-chain transactions. And if you look at that, that stack that I shared earlier, the last piece is a financial integration, right? That's a finance piece, and that's where you actually integrate directly with the government enrollment system, and hopefully over time, government benefits, direct benefit transfers also happen on our rails. So Sorry, I've had to speed through this a little bit. I probably went a little long, but that's a quick summary of some of the cool, initiatives and projects. Not really initiatives, but they're really um, broader kind of strategic components to our work in India that we pivot, we're seeing where things work, how do we keep building, and then the next stage is not only scale in India but find other applications, other opportunities in other markets to take these types of solutions too. So thanks for listening. Happy to answer any questions. Joseph, thanks for bearing with me.
No, of course. Before you go too, just wondering, you've seen this program basically, from inception till now. Like, what do you think is your greatest sort of lesson learned from all of this, and your greatest feel good moment that happened with AlgoBharat?
We've got feel good moments. I swear come every day, every time, because you see opportunity being created for young developers. It's a country with 1.4 billion people, lots of young kids who are trying to figure out where their jobs are going to come from. And in the past, a lot of these young developers would go to a traditional IT service company where you kind of are on a bench. It's great to see these young minds actually become innovators. That's amazing, and that's what Web3 is enabling for a lot of folks. And that's the massive day-to-day impact that we deal with these blockchain clubs and our hack series, and you see literally these young developers who've never presented an idea now are on a stage in front of 500 people talking about their solutions they built with pride and passion. That's pretty cool. On the flip side, you're seeing with these solutions like Seva Madeshi, people go from Web 0 to Web 3. That and so when people think about, is blockchain ever gonna blockchain's dead, or we see comments like that, it's like, oh my God, this couldn't be further from the truth, because the impact that it's having in places like India, and I suspect we'll see in other emerging markets, is really phenomenal. So lots of feel good moments, and we just have to stay patient. We got to stick with it, because the results are just starting to come in.
Awesome. And thank you so much for being on this.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. So we're going to move on to the ecosystem updates. Remember, we're going to be answering questions at the end. So if you have any questions for AlgoBharat and Anil, or any other general questions, feel free to get them in now so they're ready by the time we get to the questions. Okay, cool. So for the ecosystem, we have the highlights. And then after that, we're going to have our special guest from TxnLab. So the ecosystem. So Algo staking is now available on Revolut, and it's now available on PostFinance. Allbridge reached $600,000 in all-time bridging volume on Algorand. In addition to that, a couple of weeks ago was actually the top volume for bridging on Allbridge as well, which was cool to see. Alpha Arcade continues their growth with 120 million in cumulative volume since inception. It's been great seeing Alpha Arcade continue to grow, their volume accelerate, and as adoption increases. And Lofty surpassed 5.2 million total income to paid investors. So a lot of nice milestones all around. In addition to that, Haystack launched live on iOS and Android, and GoPlausible integrates Haystack router into OpenClaw, Algorand plugin, Claude Code, Algorand plugin, and Algorand MCP, enabling token swaps for AI agents. So if you are looking at X402, or you're looking at integrating Algorand through your vibe coding engine, or if you know how to code and stuff, check out what GoPlausible is building. They have all these plugins and tools that make integrating Algorand so much easier for your agents. Cool. And moving on, we have Patrick from TxnLab. Take it away, Patrick.
Hey, Loaf. I can't call you Joseph. Effectively. Hey, yeah. With the Transaction Labs for we've been, we've had stuff building and live on Algorand since, I guess, late 2020. Like NFTs launched, I think June 2021, something like that. But yeah, a lot of our focus these days, we're still, obviously building and supporting NFTs. We just released the DID integration for NFTs is live now. The native DNS has been live for a little while actually, but it's just more formally spec'd and documented. But yeah, a lot of what we're building nowadays is the Haystack kind of platform. And if people aren't, familiar or aware, the Haystack kind of ecosystem is a router for doing swaps across all the different protocols, TinyMan, Pact, even some of the older deprecated protocols. There's still locked up liquidity in some of those. But the Haystack router you can use to find the best optimal route across all these protocols, and even across some of the virtual liquid staking protocols. So if you're doing a large like USDC swap, for example, then I think the Haystack router will give you the best quotes across everything, because it will do dynamic X-algo mint and unmint processes, as well as T-algo. And then you're able to go through kind of these virtual pools of near unlimited liquidity on the paths through other tokens. So we have a mobile app, and we'll just have some screenshots of that later, but we have a mobile app as well as a desktop app that then exposes you to our trading platform. Hey.app is the desktop app, which you can also use for mobile. And that exposes you to all the ASAs on Algorand, as well as our launch assets, which we can talk about a little bit. And then there's the PvP, things like that. We've got shots for that as well. But the Hey.app platform is actually really, really nice for tracking, assets, movements. You have really nice charting. If everyone can see there, maybe even just viewing your own trades on an asset, you'll see kind of buy-sell bubbles along the chart. And what's also kind of cool is you can look at recent swaps, and you'll see swaps across all the protocols. You can click on any swap or any account that made that swap, and then automatically filter the charts. Now you're seeing their buys and sells forever along that for that asset. You can click on a specific candle and see just the trades for just that candle, and then filter that on that user, and then now see all the things that user did. You can filter by dollar amounts, buy, sell, things like that. It's really, really nice. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Now, the Haystack Mobile is a native mobile app for both iOS and Android. We have a new version of that should be going live now, or already live for people if they refresh their app store. But Haystack Mobile is first and foremost meant to just be really, really, really simple and easy to use. The login process, there's no mnemonics, keys, things like that. You just log in. You have a social login. You log in with your Apple account, your Google account, it's a regular email, and then that will create an Algorand account for you that you can fund through Coinbase directly. You can debit card payment basically to get algo there, or you can just send it algo directly. But it's a really, really nice platform to use for trading, because you don't have to basically pop different wallets to sign transactions. You just click buy, and it's like a Web 2 like experience, with it being all Web 3. What's also kind of cool that's only in Haystack Mobile right now is auto yield. So you can basically have algo in the account, turn on the auto yield, and then it will automatically put that algo in whatever protocol is earning the most yield. And that could be Folks, X algo, that could be TinyMan T algo, that could be lending on Folks, you name it. So we'll take the highest APR, auto deposit there, and then that balance is kind of liquid. And so then whenever you just want to buy something or swap, then it will automatically take out liquid balance, and then from yield, take out what it needs to make that swap. And then as a part of you selling something, perhaps, it will then auto deposit into those yield-bearing assets automatically. It's really, really cool. And then if you refer someone to the application, then you will earn 25% of their trading fees forever. And so you'll automatically have a rewards tab. You can just claim your tokens there. It has access to the launch asset. So directly in app, you can create new tokens live. You can trade those tokens still in the bonding process. And then just live today is also the PvP markets that's live in the mobile app now as well, which is very cool. Next slide, or if there's any questions as you go along, knock yourself out.
No, I was gonna let you go, and then we'll.
Okay. And then Haystack launch was basically, kind of our pump.fun sort of equivalent. Basically, you're able to create a token, define the bonding parameters of a price multiplier from kind of beginning to end along the bonding curve. And then a liquidity target of how much, what dollar amount of liquidity you want to be locked up before it is deployed live to Pact. So as users buy and sell on the token while it's bonding, the creator gets a percentage of every buy and sell, as well as the platform. And then once it bonds, then that liquidity is locked into the protocol, is locked into Pact, and then that LP token amount is burned. So basically, you have a permanent amount of liquidity that can never be removed, which is really nice because it's not like someone just creates their own token independently and puts up some liquidity, and then later on just rugs the whole thing because they can just remove the liquidity, and they only need to sell. They can just take all the liquidity, or in this case, all of that accrued liquidity that comes up, organically, hopefully, it still ends up being real liquidity that gets locked and burned. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but one really, really, really cool aspect about the entire Haystack ecosystem is all fees from all these protocols, all swaps, whether it comes through Para, whether it comes through Heya app use, mobile use, using the SDK, all those fees, all boosts of assets, all PvP fees, all launch fees, all those fees go into the Haystack protocol. And the Haystack protocol automatically pays out to all stakers. So if you stake your Hay, then you receive basically 75% of all those fees. So if anyone buys Hay, for example, then 100% of that Hay gets passed back out to stakers as Hay yield. And then if anyone buys Alpha, because Alpha is itself kind of a yield-bearing token that pays out USDC, the Haystack protocol, any Alpha purchased via the Haystack protocol collects and stays in the Haystack protocol escrow. And then as USDC payments go to it, that USDC gets distributed back out to stakers. So that all other fees that are collected in the protocol are on a regular basis automatically swapped to USDC, and then those swap fees then feed back to the same protocol, swap to USDC, and then 70% of all of that USDC in fees for the entire protocol are paid out directly to stakers. So if you stake, you get a constant drip that you can come in and out of at will, but you get a constant drip of those fees across an epoch. 25% of that USDC goes to the treasury, and then 5% is then a new buy of the Hay token that is then burned. So in terms of I think, in terms of a protocol for a staking, in terms of, value to stakers, it's a really nice system. Then PvP is the most recent thing we launched. That is basically a what's called a parimutuel market. It's a binary market. It doesn't require. It's not like a limit. There's no order book or anything like that. It's basically you can create a market on quite a few different things. We support the standard like crypto, generic crypto. So that'd be like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Avalanche, just, say like the top, 20, 40, 50 market cap tokens, then you can create a market on those. You can create a market on, say, the top 50 or 100 stocks. So Apple, Tesla, you name it, you can pick those. ASAs, any ASA are an Algorand that's priced within Haystack. You can create a market. Commodities, you have the Brent crude oil price, gold futures, silver futures. Then you have exotics, which would be like Bitcoin market cap dominance, crypto fear and greed, Ethereum gas price. So any of those, you can create a 1 hour, 4 hour, 12 hour, or 24-hour market. And the way it works is it's either up or down. So you can say, I think Bitcoin's from now and 4 hours from now, it's going to go up. And so you would create a market. Anyone can create it. It's $5 to initially create. And that represents your position on the upside. Then anyone can enter the market up or down. And when the market resolves at the end of that clock, then if you create the market and you have a position and up, and other people say, no, it's going to go down, and say there's $500 on the downside, then the way it resolves, the winning side gets the entire other side of the pool, divided out based on their percentage stake. So it's actually a really, really kind of neat, fun, cool system. There's already, right now there's some people creating regular markets and kind of arbing, I think, against other markets. They're doing like 24-hour markets of like Bitcoin, Ethereum. So there's already like $400 in the Bitcoin pool right now, for example. So it's kind of a neat system.
Yeah, I've been arbing, filling up my car with the burnt crude oil.
Yeah, like the oil one's kind of funny. I mean, it's like you think, oh yeah, it's going to go up, and then it's like, nope, it went down. It's like, oh, it's going to go down. Nope, it went up.
One tweet you're golden, the next tweet you're done.
Yeah. And then of course, our kind of cornerstone is NFTs. Still going strong, still used, kind of everywhere. But I think with the recent additions of the DID spec, there's an official is added into the DID registry. So DID:NFT is like the resolver for NFTs. That's open source. That's part of the official resolver repo. So in terms of DIDs, NFTs, I think are the most feature rich of any DID protocol actually at this point, because I think DIDs might be the only DID that supports reverse lookup, because that really isn't a concept in DIDs, but it's really, really powerful, because you want to be able to say DID NFT patro.algo and get that document, which you can, and you can say who it's owned by. That's all on chain. And who it's just signed with cryptography and verified with it. And then you also want to then be able to say, like, who owns this address? Well, you can basically do a DID lookup on the Algorand address and get back the DIDs that match, and nothing else offers that. So with the social verifications that we offer, or the off-chain verifications of saying, like, this is a Blue Sky account, these are my domains, all those sort of things, those are exposed as native services and endpoints in the DID document. And I think nothing else covers that. So yeah, go ahead.
Are you also the only DID protocol that can handle multiple wallet addresses off of one DID as well?
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, like, most of the DID stuff is very, very, very simple. It's you're lucky to have, basically, it's like, here's a DID, and here's a thing that can attest to ownership of it. And there isn't a whole lot more, because as a spec, it's kind of loose in terms of what it gets defined there. But because NFTs are already an on-chain mechanism to store basically arbitrary data, but also so you could store all kinds of properties in there, and that can get exposed. But You also have the ability to link multiple accounts and in both directions. So it's kind of a many-to-many relationship that you can have for Algorand accounts, certainly. But that also means you can have smart contracts actually bound to your DID. So you could actually have like an agentic, an AI agent own an NFT that it created that has real world connectivity via DNS, because any NFD automatically is a full true domain. So if you create foo.algo, that is exposed as foo.algo.xyz, because algo.xyz is a real ICANN TLD, but that foo.algo is a real thing. So an agent could create an NFD for $6 a year and then have a true, DNS domain name that it can then make changes to via just simple Algorand transactions. So with an Algorand transaction to update the NFD to add DNS data, it could say, you can reach my identity, you can reach my service that I'm running as an agent at IP address X, or I launched a service on Vercel or whatever. It can figure that out and then set that into the domain. And it doesn't have to have accounts at all these different places and deal with ICANN and who is and all that stuff. It's just, I have a domain by signing an Algorand transaction. It's insanely powerful. So yeah, I think NFTs is a silent killer. It's just a matter of people seeing what's really there.
And these can be purchased directly through the Hey app if somebody was to download it, correct?
Yeah, the mobile exposes like, hey, create an identity, and it kind of has like a nice little onboarding workflow for NFTs. The Hey app desktop just sends you to the main NFT website to mint. But yeah, app.nf.domains for minting NFTs, viewing NFTs, things like that. And then the mobile, has a kind of a built-in workflow to have that be your identity.
That's great.
Yeah. And then speaking of Agentic, we have in a GitHub repo, it's at github.com/TxnLab/skills. And basically you can clone that and then add that into, say, your Claude repo or OpenClaw, whatever you're using, and basically expose a series of skills that you can then reference to add like trading workflows to your code. So if you want to do swaps and have your agent do swaps, you can just point it at the Haystack router skill, and there's a free API key that's all automatically there that should automatically find, and you'd be able to get like a quote and swap. Like say you wanted to set up a grid bot or something like that, you could do that quite simply. So the skills are for NFTs, for searching, minting NFTs, use wallet for exposing, wallet interface to your dApp, and then the router for doing trades.
Awesome. So if anybody is in the audience and you haven't heard of Hey, it's a one-stop shop. You can experience Algorand without any of the friction because it's built like a Web 2 experience. You could stake there, you could swap there, you can exploit an ecosystem. It's basically everything you need for decentralized finance on Algorand all in one place. So check it out if you haven't already and refer all your friends. Patrick, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that the Haystack login that you have in mobile, you can use the same login on desktop, and I love it. I mean, because it's basically this nice kind of in between where I'm not having to pop a phone to sign. It's basically an embedded, kind of an embedded wallet of sorts using the social login. Keys are basically fetched through an MPC configuration through Web3 auth, and transactions are signed and the keys are discarded memory instantly. But the nice thing is, in terms of the user experience, I can go to Hey app, use a Haystack login, and if I just want to buy something, I literally just click buy and that's it, I'm done. There's no pop here, load up my phone, do this and that. I just click buy. So for using things like the PVP or stuff like that, I just can look at any chart. I can on the side, it'll have a PvP market right there for the ASA. I can just go, oh yeah, this thing's going down, like put $5 on it, or oh, this thing's going up and put $5 on it. It's a really nice experience. I'm really happy with it, actually.
Awesome. Amazing. Really looking forward to seeing what else you guys build, and hope to have you back on the show soon.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, cool. So I'm going to pop through some of the questions here. I know you guys have been very anxious to ask these. All right, so let's see if this works right. Cool. All right, cool. Was there a dialogue between the Ecosystem Advisory Council and AF? What are the conclusions? Yeah, I believe like when we first started, there was some dialogue, and there's quarterly meetings with everything. So one should be coming up soon. So yeah, and there's going to be no conclusions. It's a work in progress. It's a group between the Algorand Foundation and the community to work towards and align our goals together. So there's not going to be any direct conclusions on certain things, but if we need, like, it's just going to keep going. Let's see. When will the first draft of the long-awaited King safety paper appear? What is the cause of the delay? So we're hoping to have an update on this really soon. The cause of delay was we had the paper and we had an old board, and then we moved to the United States, and now we have a new board. So I guess the easiest way I could explain this is if you're leaving the party first, you don't want to determine the music for everybody else at that point forward. So it just makes more sense for us to regroup with the new board, with the Ecosystem Advisory Council that was just made, align all our priorities together, and then release it after everybody that has seen it. So it makes a lot of sense to do it this way. And, hopefully when everything's out and everybody approves of it, everybody will be happy. Right now, when Bitcoin drops 5%, Algo drops 12%. This makes it too scary for serious institutional money, no matter how good. How do we break? I mean, I can't comment on price action or anything like that. It's completely beyond our control. But Algorand is a very useful chain. This is where we separate ourselves from Bitcoin and other chains that don't have the same utility and intrinsic value that Algorand brings to it. I mean, with Algorand, it's a layer one assets, layer one smart contracts, layer one multi-sig. It's secure. We've been online since 2019. And I just think in the future, especially with all these hacks going on, that people are going to be looking towards things that run and are, for lack of better words, boring. And, at this time and age of crypto, boring is good. Algorand would be ideal for Iran to collect transit fees, much better than Bitcoin and Lightning Network. But Algorand has not enough liquidity and is seen as a U.S. product. Can AF seize this opportunity? I mean, I think we already are kind of seizing the opportunity when it comes to humanitarian aid. You look at Haystack, for example, and the inroads that we're doing there in Afghanistan, our move to Syria, the inroads that we're making with humanitarian groups like the United Nations. I really think that Algorand is one of the leading blockchains when it comes to this and humanitarian remittances, and even to the entire AlgoBharat and what we're doing over there. So I honestly think that we are seizing the opportunity more than anything. This question is more for Anil, but how do you compare this model with Polygon for the AlgoBharat, if you want to come back on stage?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. I mean, there's different aspects to our, our approach. Polygon's, I think, changed a lot of what they're doing. So I can't even tell you, I'm not as focused on their India strategy, but we're layer one. Obviously, there's big differences in who we are and what Polygon is, but more importantly, our approach to engaging developers and our, enterprise solutions. It's really, when we go in, when we engage with enterprises, is a clear understanding of why Algorand, why blockchain. I don't know what their enterprise strategy is, so I can't really speak to their model. But we've got over 100 blockchain clouds. We've got thousands of developers that are learning to build on Algorand. It's with ease that they build, and our focus is on real world solutions. So I don't know. I don't have much more to offer on how our model compares with theirs.
Okay, cool. That's great. All right, I'm just looking. Doesn't look like there's anything else. I see one comment. Canton seems to be taking all main institutional banking and Wall Street tokenization. I mean, don't worry about that. I mean, every business is going to want to have as many chains offering their support for their product. So I would not worry about that. But we're a little over, so I'm just going to wrap this up. I appreciate everybody coming and joining us today. Hope you enjoyed my hosting. I hope you